couple of years later, Carl Lumholtz traveled through the area, and he had a brighter opinion. Quitobaquito owes its native name, Small Springs, to several diminutive springs with excellent water, which are found there, and which in futile attempts at cattle raising and mining had been deflected into a dam now utilized solely by Indians. The tiny stream, fed by the springs, carries beautiful limpid water amid banks white with mineral salts. The fresh green weeds at the bottom are also refreshing to behold. When heavy showers fall, connection is made with the Senita River, and the same minnows which were seen there splashing in the stream up to its very sources. The dam, of only moderate size, made a charming impression with the surrounding trees and bushes reflected in it. There were a few dark gray and black water hens here, one white heron, and some ducks, and at dusk 7 fine-looking geese swooped down into the pond, evidently intending to spend the night there. Lumholtz had mentioned minnows in the springs. He was describing the very rare desert pupfish. Quitobaquito is now the only wild sanctuary for this fish. We easily spotted the rarities in the glassy, clear water. The oasis appeared suddenly from the tall, thick brush lining the road. We parked in an open area to have a closer look at the pond. We spotted a female, phainopepla, clutching a bare branch high in an old mesquite. She was pale gray with white wing bars. The male was close by, and he was a glossy, deep black. We have seen the males throughout the Sonoran Desert, even as the temperatures rise. They eventually leave the lower desert during the hottest time of year in late spring and summer. Even though we were at the spring while the temperature was mild, how could the deep black plumage not cause the bird to overheat? From studies on the adaptable bird, it was found the male phainopepla's skin is only imperceptibly warmer than a female. The dark feathers absorbed heat, but did not transfer the heat to the body. The males shed the heat using a variety of strategies. They use light breezes to dissipate the heat, along with standing on a high perch above the warmer ground while perched in the shade. The male sings one of my favorite desert tunes, and one that a human whistler can mimic. It is a slightly high-pitched whistled bit. The pair at Quitobaquito was likely a breeding pair, and as the warm weather approached in early May, the birds would migrate to cooler areas of New Mexico, Arizona, and California. Much of the palette of desert color tends towards subdued grays, beige, and yellow among living things. Generally, rocks in the landscape tend toward dark browns, white, and black. So it is refreshing when an unusual color appears, no matter how small it is in the field of view. I spotted, skirting between sun and shade, a spectacular male vermillion flycatcher. In bright sunlight, the aptly named firehead reflects a desert color spectrum buster of fluorescent red. This flycatcher breeds throughout most of Mexico and up to southern California, Nevada, and east to central Texas. They are opportunists and select from a wide variety of trees to build nests. Nests in the trees can range in height from a human-sized 5 feet to a lofty 40 feet near the upper limit of desert trees. Quitobaquito is in the middle of a high-density area for these birds, and in general, southern and southeastern Arizona contain higher densities relative to many other areas. Afterward, we continued along the road until we found a nice place to park and ready to camp on the Abra plain. We parked at the edge of the dusty road as the late afternoon sun blazed away. We packed all we would need into full-size backpacks and walked into the wilderness desert. Desert camping has a caveat to placement of the camp. Open areas are often in arroyos or inside small stream beds. There is deep sand, but deadly flash floods are a danger. Near a stream bed, there are grassy areas, but those are open because catastrophic floods have scoured bushes and trees away. Finding a suitable campsite is difficult because there are many plants with needles and thorns attached to the cactus or trees or littering the ground. We decided to make camp in an area within 50 feet of an eroded gully. During this time of spring, there would be no rain. Taking time to choose a well-placed campsite in the desert wilderness is always worth the search. Serenity and a feeling of oneness with nature is assured. We erected a forest green pop-up tent, then brought out our cooking utensils, including a butane burner. We were ravenous after a day on the road and roadside exploration. Over a hissing flame, the machaca cooked in salsa. Audrey served the spiced meat burrito style. Following dinner, I took the pan and scrubbed it with desert sand. As the sun set, I walked away from camp to dispose of the sand, then rinsed the pot using as little hiked-in water as possible. At the moment I began to pour, I heard what first sounded like a whole pot of water being poured onto the bush that I was standing next to. But the pot was still in my hand and the water was still in it. The sound was not pouring water. It was a Mohave rattlesnake. I was startled, but the rattlesnake had the presence of mind to slither away. That Mohave was just going about its life, having begun to survey for food for the night, when I interrupted its hunt. The snake, while hunting, picks up the body temperatures of ground squirrels, rabbits, rats, and mice that they specialize in. I walk back to the tent, only 10 yards distant. Anyone walking in the desert with any frequency will encounter the mysterious reptiles. I have always found it disconcerting that the rattlesnakes are so well camouflaged for the desert that sometimes the only way I see them is after I hear the rattle. After many years in the desert, I have learned to look toward the ground when hiking in the desert. It's not a place for complacency. It can be easy to walk in the desert with spirit in the heart, but at the same time it's vital to pay attention when walking. There are 26 species of rattlesnake in the United States. Over half of them can be found in Arizona. A study done in 1928 and 1929 discovered that 98% of snake bites occurred below the knee or on the hand or forearm. The official publication suggested that one should wear boots up to the knee and never try to pick up a rattlesnake. Never to try to pick them up makes sense, but boots up to the knee are not practical. Ranchers, cowboys, and riders often wear the calf-high cowboy boots with jeans, but hikers wear hiking boots for comfort, stability, and lightness. My encounter with the snake was early in spring, and I have discovered that, after recently leaving their winter quarters, the hungry snakes are less patient than a snake that has had its first post-winter meal. So how much danger was I really in? According to an expert, not too much. The snakes do not actually want to poison us with their venom. They have a lot of other things that they need to do as a snake. Their venom in particular is not for defense. It is a nerve toxin, so it doesn't work quickly enough to be a defense mechanism. Their natural toxin is extraordinarily complex, and among the various venomous snake species and individuals, the toxins vary. Depending on the chemistry, the venom can, for one species, act upon the blood and cause coagulation, and for other species, the venom can stop coagulation and cause the victim to continue to bleed. Some toxins cause paralysis, and others cause spasms. Currently, pharmaceutical companies are researching rattlesnake venom, and the complex molecules have become important in investigations for medical studies. After the close encounter with the Mohave, we decided the early spring rattlesnake needed its space, and we retreated to the tent. I took out a ceramic flute that I had bought recently in the border town of Nogales, Sonora. The rustic flute was made from pale red-fired clay. Attached to the foot was an Aztec-style design connecting two perforated barrels. Having listened to many recordings and live performances of Native American flute music, I attempted to transcend the rattlesnake moment and put it to music. You can't go too far wrong with the flute. I was surrounded with spectacular desert. The open tent flap faced west with a lone ridgeline topped by cactus silhouetted against the dusk. Amid the soft sounds of the flute, we witnessed the sky darkening, and one by one we could see satellites breezing by Far above, the brightest stars appeared, followed by lower magnitude stars, and then the glow of the Milky Way. I realized I was intruding on the desert and finished my flute playing. Our voices dropped to a whisper, and then exquisite silence. Soon the real desert sounds began. There is a haunting but satisfying anticipation, knowing that in many areas of the desert I could count on hearing the voice of the great horned owl. Close by or far away, their familiar call begins as hoo, followed by a brief silence and finishes with a quick hoot hoot. Though elsewhere the owls have a call with more hoots, here in the desert there are limited hoots. Another voice of the desert is the coyote. The nearer the pack, the wider the variety in their vocabularies of howls, yips, and yahoos. If the coyote is close enough, it may sound like the howling is next to the tent. Realization brings a brief involuntary hair rising to my neck. That night, the dry desert air cooled enough to necessitate sleeping bags. Amid the stars, owls, coyotes, and rattlesnakes, we fell asleep. The next morning, we woke to a pleasantly cool temperature. After hot cups of coffee and granola bars, we set off to hike to the ideally named Lost Cabin Mine. We left our camp and hiked back to the car, then drove to the trailhead. We parked at the Senita Basin trailhead in the Puerto Blanco mountains, where several small mines were located. Although the original locators of the mines may have been store owners, ranchers, customs officials, or tradesmen, many of them devoted much of their time to prospecting. Small adits, or prospect holes, are found throughout the Southwest. Gold in Arizona is rare compared to silver and king copper. Geological maps reveal a band of metallic ores occurring roughly from southeast Arizona up to the northwest part of the state. That broad band provided the vast majority of the state's mineral resources. The monument lies outside the mineral belt in Arizona, although a rich series of early copper mines were located north of the monument near Ajoite. Before it became a monument, the vast desert area was prospected, and whatever valuable minerals were dug up were near the surface in small outcroppings. We stopped briefly to reconnoiter the Martinez mine. There were remains of past hard rock mining in a horizontal shaft. Unused drill holes for dynamite to blast the rock remained fresh even after decades had passed. The remote mine was surrounded by a protective field fence, but still easily accessible. Further along the trail, at the Victoria mine, there was a heavy old Arasta flywheel propped on its side, evidence that the early miners crushed the ore before shipping it to an assayer. Nearby was a stone house that was originally about 6 feet high. Its wooden roof was gone, but sawn, wood-framed windows at sitting level still looked out upon the lonely spot. Immediately behind the house was the fenced-in mine. The Victoria was a patented mine, but no longer active because it's in a national monument. Also, geologists would have determined that the mine had no economic value. At the romantically named Lost Cabin Mine, there are no known recorded claims and no known history. It's been fittingly a mystery in itself. At the site, there was a well-built stone house. The stones were still perfectly fitted, but the mortar was gone. Whoever built the Victoria Mine house may have also worked to build the house at Lost Cabin. The only remaining resident of the Lost Cabin Mine house was a brittle bush, flowering at its center. After returning via the same trail we hiked in on, we went back to camp, packed our gear, and left the desert paradise for our memories. And so ends the chapter, and we'll see you next time.